Hey, what's up guys? So we're going to be going over the best Barbarian build for Whirlwind in Season 19. So this video is going to be showcasing off two different builds. One's going to be a Speed Torment 16 build, and then we're going to go ahead and hop into the Greater Rift pushing build. So let's go ahead and first off hop into the Torment 16, which is going to be all about speeds, and then we're going to go ahead and showcase off the Greater Rift build. Now both these builds play relatively similar. I mean, at the end of the day, it is a Whirlwind build, but Whirlwind doesn't actually apply your damage. Your damage actually is going to be coming from Ren. And we're going to go ahead and go over all of the things that you'll be wanting inside of like the cube and all that stuff and what you want as far as equipment. But I do want to showcase off the gameplay first because I think a lot of people do want to see the new updated speed build, because the last speed build that I did, a lot of you guys really like because it's a lot faster than some of the other builds you might see on like YouTube or maybe your favorite streamers playing. Because we're actually utilizing Leap to make this go much faster. And in addition to that, with the Flavor of Time and the Gloves of Worship, it's going to significantly increase your time if you happen to hit those pylons, which I understand it's random, but when you have 10 minutes on your shrine, it's going to significantly increase your speeds. And make sure you do activate your Leap just to go ahead and cross gaps, but sometimes when you get hit by, of course, the Temptresses, they do hit for quite a bit of damage. And this build is a little bit more squishy because it is a speed build. We're not going to be running a Warcry here. But for the most part, it's a very fast build. We'll go ahead and finish off this T16 because it's going to be relatively fast. Most of the time, you will be able to complete things, of course, when your RNG is lucky, in under 2 minutes. Depending on, of course, if you have to backtrack or not and how lucky the mobs are. But for the most part, it's a fairly simple build, and being able to leap lets you go through content so much faster. It really makes a huge difference in being able to, again, leap and cross certain gaps that normally would make you go all the way around, or sometimes you walk in the wrong direction, or you want to go ahead and jump down, grab, like, let's say the channeling pylon, go ahead and kill the elite, grab that, and then go right back up. It just makes things a lot faster. Unfortunately, doors are still sometimes part of a problem, which you have to destroy the door sometimes. But sometimes there is pylons up here, so I always like to go ahead and check. But if not, you know, just go ahead and leap right back down and go through content a lot faster. But pretty much you want to keep your buffs up at all times, and then just leap when you need to. Even though Ren is on our bar, we don't actually need to activate Ren. We just want it because of the rune that's in there. And also, sometimes against wallers, it's nice to be able to leap to dodge certain things, but mostly it's to just clear through the content much faster. The Rift Guardian's coming up over here, and we'll go ahead and melt him. There we go. And you clear content. That's basically a minute and a half with some subpar optimization on pathing, because we got some dead ends. But again, a minute or 2 minutes is what's considered pretty decent for speed. We're going to go ahead and actually upgrade my Bane of the Stricken here. So we can go ahead and augment stuff later down the line. We'll go ahead and go back to town, and then we're going to go ahead and do the Greater Rift build, because they actually play a little bit different here. So let's go ahead and showcase off that build and do a Greater Rift. So let's go ahead and swap our build. So we're going to go ahead and go to the Greater Rift pushing build, which actually is a little bit different in gameplay, because how it works is you're going to be activating your Ground Stomp, Wrenching Smash, and that's going to group up all the enemies. Obviously, when you're doing like T100 plus, things don't tend to die like in one hit, basically clearing content like you guys saw in the speed build. So you're going to actually group them up so you can actually activate your Ren Bloodbath. Now, you're not going to actually activate the skill, but it's going to be proccing, because how it works is with this build, your Ren will actually apply when you actually utilize Whirlwind. And this build is a little bit more tanky, obviously, as you go higher in the Greater Rifts. You're going to need to become more tanky, so we're going to go ahead and activate our Warcry, and that's going to actually give us increased dodge chance. So that's really the only difference with this build. And then also with Battle Rage, there's several different things that you guys can run for runes, and I'll get into all of the skills and all the passives in a moment, but I just want to go ahead and show you guys the gameplay. So let's go ahead and do, let's go just a T100, because as you go higher, it requires a little bit of RNG with Flavor of Time, but let's go ahead and show off this build over here. So basically what you want to do is keep up your buffs just like you normally would, but you want to actually activate your Ground Stomp when there's a bunch of enemies. And unfortunately, there are no enemies around us, so we're going to have maybe a little bit less of a uptime on our Wrath of the Berserker. But basically, group up the enemies, activate your Wrenching Smash, and that's going to essentially activate your Rend And once one enemy dies, you'll see a lot of them start to melt very fast. Now, we don't have Wrath of the Berserker up, but once it's up, it's going to significantly increase our lethality, and it's going to give us a lot more toughness. And because of our follower, he's got the Oculus Ring, and that's going to help us. If we can group up the enemies inside here, this would be considered ideal. But pretty much as far as the gameplay goes, just group up the enemies, Wrenching Smash makes things melt very fast. And sometimes if you are on an elite, and there's a lot of small enemies, and they all melt, and I just didn't want to stand in the explosions because, well, at T100, most of those things will definitely one-shot you. But you don't have to do every elite immediately. You can group up other enemies, and once they explode, you'll see that other enemies will explode around them. We need to get a better density over here. Sometimes you just get unlucky. That's just how greater rifts are. You got to get those pylons, especially with the Flavor of Time. That will significantly increase how fast you can clear out content. So you can see, once you group up the enemies, and one melts, the other one will pop, and the other one will pop. It's kind of like a little chain reaction here with, of course, your Ground Stomp. Come to this elite over here, and this will significantly increase our progress on the rift. But also, since it is the season of Pandemonium, sometimes when you freeze the enemies, that won't let you actually proc your Ground Stomp. The enemies will actually still be frozen in place. And since we have Bane of the Stricken, when there's only one target, it melts much faster. But we won't do this full rift. I feel like you guys pretty much get the idea. Activate Ground Stomp and group them all up, and one causes the other to proc. And like I said, with Flavor of the Time, we got unlucky. There was no pylons. And just so I'm able to swap out my runes, because we're in a Greater Rift, I'm going to go ahead and reset the game. But pretty much with Flavor of the Time, you need a little bit of RNG, but for the most part, you should be getting pylons. We just got unlucky, of course, for the YouTube video. But it does significantly increase your time in the Rift. But let's go ahead and go over both of the different builds. So first off, Wrath of the Waste is going to be the build that everyone will be getting with, of course, your season journey. But you don't actually want to get any whirlwind damage on your gear. Normally, you would get whirlwind, let's say, on your boots as well as your helm to increase the damage, but you don't actually want that. You actually want the Ren damage to be rolled on the shoulders as well as on your chest piece. Obviously, we're still in the process of doing that. The season just came out, even though we're powering on like 700 here. Still, sometimes RNG just doesn't favor you. But really what it comes down to is Ren. Ren is going to be the source of all of your damage, so you want to buff that in, again, your chest and your shoulders. As far as what you're looking for in stats, it's pretty much the same as every single Diablo season for the most part. Crit hit chance, crit hit damage, as well as cooldown reduction where you can get it. And again, Ren damage in shoulders as well as your chest piece. So let's go ahead and go over the speed build first, and then we'll go ahead and go over the Greater Rift pushing builds. And then we'll talk a little bit about theory crafting, and if you guys don't happen to have some of these items or early on, what gems can be better than other gems and stuff like that, or if you just don't happen to get them early on. So first off, as far as the speed build, in our cube, we've got the Ambo's Pride, the Gloves of Worship, and the Band of Might. So the Ambo's Pride is essentially what gives you a lot of your damage. So when you attack with Whirlwind, it applies Rend, and the total damage of Ren is dealt over 1 second. And if you combine that with Lamentation over here, Ren stacks 2 times and the damage of Ren is increased by up to 150%. This is essentially what is new with Barbarian as far as the new Barbarian buffs. So this is why everyone's pretty much playing Barbarian this season. And of course, it's fun to play Whirlwind. So Gloves of Worship are basically for T16 pushes. You'll see more regular pylons in normal versus if you do Greater Rifts, you'll see more pylons, and you're going to go ahead and activate this. But technically, both of them do exist in one another, so this is definitely always going to increase your speed. As far as in the Bracer department, we're running Nemesis. For any speed build, you definitely want Nemesis, and then this is going to give us some damage reduction, which is of course Band of Might. And then Potion, if you can get the Teleport Potion or the Potion that can destroy walls, but it's really not that big of a deal what potion you have. As far as gems go, though, because I don't meet certain cooldown thresholds, I'm running the Gogok of Swiftness, but the most important gems are going to be Taeguk, as well as Bane of the Trapped, and then for the other gem, you can really run whatever you want, to be honest. It's not really that important, but if you're doing Greater Rifts, you're obviously going to want the Bane of the Stricken, but it's not very strict on what you need as far as your other gem. Definitely Taeguk and definitely Bane of Stricken for Greater Rift. The other one is probably going to be Bane of the Trap most of the time for most people. Again, depending on how far you've leveled it. But as far as the Wrath of the Wastes, you want all 6 pieces, or technically it's 5 with Royal Ring of Grandeur. And then you can run Mantle of Channeling here. You can run the Hexing Pants of Mr. Yan. That can be another option, just to increase your damage or get extra damage reduction with your Mantle of Channeling in the shoulder department here. And then we're also running the Bolkathos. So this is for the speed build. The speed build definitely wants to go as fast as possible, and the Bolkathos set is hands down going to be the best into that department because it gives you 45% increased attack speed and extra movement speed. The attack speed is basically utilized to proc rend as fast as possible because it can apply 2 times on the same target, but also it's just really for the movement speed. There really isn't anything that is going to compete with this. But we'll get into things for Greater Rift pushings, and there's a lot of different options that are very viable for utilizing in the weapon department. But basically, the 2-piece Bolkathos is going to be ideal if you're just interested in speeds. So for rings, Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac, and then Royal Ring of Grandeur, and then Band of Might. It doesn't matter which one is in what location, just ideally if you can get your Band of the Might to give you the greatest reduction, it's going to be the greatest in the cube, because with Royal Ring of Grandeur, it's always going to give you that -1 to the set requirement, and Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac is always going to give you that ability to keep your Wrath of the Berserker at all uptime. But that's it for the items. Now, as far as the skills, I'm going to go ahead and do it on this page because I like how it looks here. We want Rend Bloodbath. This is actually going to make it so, like I was saying before with the Wrenching Smash with Ground Stomp, it's going to group all those enemies up together. And for the speed build, you can actually drop this completely if you want to, because you're going to melt everything a lot faster anyways. But what it does offer is if a unit is too far away from the initial activation of your Whirlwind and doesn't get hit by it, they can get hit by the secondary explosion of Bloodbath, killing all the other enemies. And then actually, you know what? Let's go back to the speed build here because we're going over this one first. So let's go ahead and equip this. So that's what we're going to be running in our secondary. Well, it's in our first skill. It doesn't matter what order you put anything in. This is just the one that I happen to put my order in. And then for our leap, you can actually run a lot of different things if you want to, but because you have less damage reduction with this build, because you don't have the War Cry, I'm running Iron Impact. That's going to give us 150% additional armor over here. And then for our other ability, Sprint, we want to go ahead and have additional movement speed, and that's going to go ahead and obviously give us more movement speed because this is a speed build. And then for our Whirlwind rune, we actually want to run Lightning. It doesn't really matter the rune as far as what we're running because our damage doesn't come from Whirlwind, but what it does offer is the gain 1 fury for every enemy struck. So that basically helps with our resource management because Berserker Rage is going to give us additional damage once it's at full fury. Now, as far as the tactics, we're running the Battle Rage Ferocity. This is going to increase our movement speed by another 15%. So again, just going as fast as possible is the goal with the speed build. And then for the Wrath of the Berserker, you can actually run, if you need the extra damage, you can run Insanity, but the ideal ones are going to be Insanity and Shredding Giant. Now, with the Greater Rift pushing build, you're going to have all of them anyway, so pick whatever one that you want. It doesn't really matter. For the speed build, I'm running Berserker Rage, Rampage, and Superstition, as well as Boon of Bolkathos. Ideally, Berserker Rage, Rampage, as well as Boon of Kathos is pretty much what everyone's running. The last one for the speed build can be whatever you want. I don't happen to reach the thresholds for the damage reduction. However, you don't really want to run Ruthless because you should be killing everything fast enough anyways. Some people running Tough as Nails, some people running Nerves of Steel for like an extra source of damage reduction, or I guess survivability here. But this one could be swapped into whatever you want. If you want the most amount of damage, I guess technically you can run Brawler, but I'm melting everything anyways. This one is totally optional as far as what you want to run. Now, going into the Greater Rift pushing build, things get a little bit different here. So there's a lot of different things that you guys can swap. So as far as what we're running that's different in this build, now there's a lot of different options that you can run. Echoing Fury can actually give you 75% increased attack speed. And while this set over here can give you 45, the movement speed doesn't matter because are obviously not going fast enough for the movement speed to actually matter in the speed build. So in the Greater Rift build, the movement speed doesn't matter, so 75% attack speed is just going to overwhelm it, because when you slay an enemy, it gives you the ability to stack up to 5 times, giving you extra attack speed, and goes up to, again, 75% attack speed. And then we're actually running Ambo's Pride in here, and then we're actually queuing the Furnace. There's a lot of different things that people are running. Viable other options that are technically on the leaderboards right now, Pig Sticker instead of, this is to swap Echoing Fury, because you have to have either Ambo's Pride in the cube, or there was one build technically using the Furnace that was on the leaderboard, and I also saw one using Messerschmitts, which actually canceled out the Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. I do want to mention all the theory crafting here, because there's a lot of options. Bulk Cathos is still very viable, but again, when you compare 45% attack speed to swapping it into just literally Echoing Fury, it gives you up to 75% attack speed. It technically outclasses it. And then with the other option, the Istvan's Paired Blades, these are probably, I would say, arguably one of the better choices. I don't happen to have mine Ancient, but if you happen to have yours Ancient, of course with sockets, these could be very good. What it's going to offer is extra increased attack speed, damage, and armor for 5 seconds, and it can stack up to 5 times. This is actually very good. But the reason why I actually really like Echoing Fury is because of Bane of the Stricken and meeting specifically 3 attacks per second. And that can actually proc your Bane of the Stricken a lot faster. And that's what Echoing Fury does technically offer. So it makes Rift Guardians a lot faster to utilize Echoing Fury for that. But these are, again, the viable weapon options in the game for Whirlwind Barb. As far as the differences, it's pretty much the same. However, we are running the Captain set. We're getting, of course, that Royal Ring of Grandeur. So we can utilize 2 different sets over here. We can actually have the Captain set, which actually is going to give us, for 2-piece bonus, gives us life regen. But more importantly, we want that resource cost reduction of 20% and also that cooldown reduction, because with the 3-piece set, we can have it so damage dealt is increased by a percentage of your cooldown reduction, and also damage taken is reduced by your percentage of cost reduction. So we have extra survivability, and on top of that, we have extra damage. And then as far as the gems go, it's pretty much just like most builds. You're going to be running diamonds just because eventually you meet a threshold where strength is not as valuable as resistance is. But that's the only change. You can run the Captain Crimson's legs as well. It doesn't really matter which one you happen to decide which one to swap in and out. But the difference is, as far as the bracers go, we are running Vortex Brace, and you want to roll physical damage on what you can, because again, your damage doesn't come from Whirlwind, which would normally be Lightning. It actually comes from Rend. Now, as far as our choices in the skills and passive, it is a little bit different here. So what we're running that's different is we're going to be running Ground Stomp, Wrenching, Smash, and that's going to, again, pull all the enemies closer. And then we're also running Warcry, Veteran's Warning, which actually gives us extra armor, and then on top of that increases our dodge chance by up to 30% over here when affected by Warcry. And this is something that you guys can swap in and out. I've seen people also do Ignore Pain, and if you decide to do Ignore Pain, you want Ironhide, which is going to increase the duration. But as far as that goes, pretty much that's what people are running. And then we also happen to have, same thing on this, is going to be Wind Shear. It's just so you can keep up that Fury. And then for Battle Rage, with the Greater Rift pushing build, you actually don't need the movement speed. This is where it's a little bit different. People are running a lot of different things here. I've seen a lot of people utilize Bloodshed. I've seen people also use Into the Fray, and also the swords here, which is actually going to give you more survivability. So depending on what you need, these are going to be your best options here. Personally, for me, I really like the ability to deal that extra damage. It depends on, again, what you're really looking for. Like, obviously, this is going to be actually another thing that can proc extra numbers in the game, which could potentially proc, let's say, Bane of the Stricken. There are some skills with Bane of the Stricken that won't proc, but that's a very difficult thing to measure. However, I just like the additional damage that you can deal with this. In fact, if you do a lower Greater Rift, you can actually get so much damage that you don't actually need a Whirlwind, and you can just walk and things will just start melting, which is kind of just funny. But I do want to mention that that is another option here. And then for Wrath of the Berserker, again, it doesn't matter because with the bracers, you'll be getting all of them anyways. Now, going into what's different here, the only real difference here is I'm running Ruthless, so that's going to deal additional damage because units will have a lot more HP, therefore this becomes a little bit more valuable because you're not one-shotting every single unit here. But other things I want to mention that are here for some theory crafting. If you are not meeting the thresholds for damage or certain things in the very beginning, Bane of the Powerful is actually really great in the very beginning. Just literally get it to 25. Or if you want to level it up to augment later down the line, this could be an option. But in the start, this one is very good because you're probably going to want to level up your Taeguk before your Bane of the Trap because it's going to offer more survivability. But again, as far as gems go, ideally it's going to be your Taeguk, your Bane of the Stricken, and then your Bane of the Trap. Mine's not leveled up, so I don't have it equipped right now. Obviously, once you level it up, you just throw it in an augment. But Bane of the Powerful is okay early on. If you happen to die very fast, the Esoteric Alteration could be a great option. Again, this is more for like early start. It could be another option. If we're really talking about min-maxing, as far as speeds go, the chain over here, Chillinx chain, can be really great because it also increases the movement speed by up to 40%, which could be a huge change, but you'll have to meet certain damage thresholds to where this becomes viable. But again, this is just for min-maxing. As far as what you're cubing, I have also seen people use these stone gauntlets, which actually did receive a buff over here. Oh, well, technically it's kind of new, but it makes it so you can get an additional 50 armor every time that you get hit. But it reduces your movement speed and attack speed. But if you're in Wrath of the Berserker, you can completely ignore the negative side. So it just could potentially increase your armor by 250%, which is huge. However, you are sacrificing potential damage and damage reduction because that means you wouldn't be running, let's say, like Mantle of Channeling or something. And I think overall most people enjoy this because sometimes when you don't happen to have Wrath of Berserker even for a second, it just feels bad and you're moving so slow. And then since you're not attacking, you can just instantly melt. So I do want to mention that it is technically I think people are running on the leaderboards. I've seen a few people do Squirt's Necklace, but it requires a lot of shielding. It's a little bit more complicated, but you can technically, if you want to, some people were doing previously on the PTR. I'm not sure if it's still viable, but they would basically get your the Gizzard, the other gem that gives you a shield once you level up to 25. It's this one over here. And they're trying to make it so they just don't take any damage, or making their damage reduction so high that that shield will never actually go away and it won't go into your health. And then your Squirt's Necklace will be at 100% uptime of 100% bonus damage. There's no gem in the game that's going to just give you 100% bonus. So that's essentially what you're going to be doing with this, with Squirt's Necklace. Again, it's really difficult, but I figured I like the idea of theory crafting in videos, so I do want to mention it. And then also, as far as other things that you can run as far as rings go, pretty much most people are running Zodiac, Royal Ring of Grandeur, as well as, of course, your Band of Might. But Convention of Elements is definitely a great option as well, and just in case you don't want to run the set or you don't happen to have it because obviously it takes a while to get it, this could be another option, a great other ring. But I think we went over everything, but yeah, that is indeed the two best ways to actually play a Whirlwind right now in the game. And again, if you meet certain thresholds on certain things like Boon of Bolcathos, which reduces your cooldown of your Wrath of the Berserker, go ahead and swap that in and out. Again, most people in the very beginning of the season won't be reaching that, but again, that is a viable way. But I'm definitely going to be looking out to upgrade these to Ancient and then equipping them once that happens. But I did want to mention that one thing that's important with Bane of the Stricken is meeting certain numbers. There's a really good video by Quinn69, which I'm sure a lot of you guys know in the Diablo community, and I'll link that down below. It's a very extensive video, and I'm sure a lot of people will be confused by watching it, but specific numbers will make it so the Bane of the Stricken will activate much faster, and it's really helpful against Rift Guardians to melt them, especially if you're interested in doing high greater Rift pushes solo with Barbarian. But anyways, I know there was a lot of information, but hopefully this video helped you guys out, and maybe it helped you guys decide on what you're going to be actually building for your Barbarian. But if you guys felt like I missed out on anything, definitely let me know in the comment section below, and I'll definitely give you an answer on that. But thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and if you did, drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel and would like to see more Diablo as well as other gaming content, hit subscribe, turn on that bell, and you'll definitely see more very soon. But thanks for tuning in, guys. And if you guys do need any help, I will be pretty much live streaming for the next couple days, obviously with the new season coming out. I mean, day one, we already hit Paragon's 700, which is quite nice. We've been on that grind, but I'll leave my Twitch down below if you guys do want to follow me over on Twitch. And if any of you guys need to hit level 70, I'm always power leveling anyone in the stream. If you guys need a power level, feel free to come in, and I'll definitely get you to 70 very fast. But thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one, and I'm signing out. Peace.